Hello, I am Mr. Fixit from ES Repair. When having problems with your game, operating system, or other software, tech support will often ask for the version number of the program you have installed. What's the significance of the software version number? Well, they are used to identify and compare other versions of the software to see and contrast the differences for compatibility. A good example would be Windows 7 when it was released in late 2009. The architecture between Windows 7 and Windows Vista were similar, which allowed users to upgrade Windows Vista to Windows 7. However, users of Windows XP had to perform a clean install of Windows 7 due to incompatibilities with Windows XP. Software developers often have two separate versions. The stable version is available to the public or the end user, while the other is known as a beta version. Now, these are found in the select few known as beta testers who test the software for stability and reliability. For example, Microsoft's Windows 10 Insider program is a form of beta testing. You'll also notice that these programs may have the word beta written next to them to indicate that these are testing programs and not exactly ready for the public. Software developers assign a version number to their software to indicate the degree of change, the order of release, and the date of release. The version number can be part of the software's name, such as Java 8 Update 301, to easily identify which version you have installed. The most common scheme used in software versions is the semantic numbering. The first number is known as a major version. This means that the software is complete, stable, and ready for public use. This is a very important number because it also indicates compatibility with other versions. The second number is called the minor version. This is used to identify changes to the software since the major version was released. This may include new features and updates that have been added to or removed from the major version. Some developers even use a third number, which is the patch version. Now, this is often used to indicate patches or fixes to the software to resolve problems in the minor or the major version. Apple's latest release of the iOS 14 is a great example. iOS 14 was first released September 16, 2020. The 14 is the major version. A few days later, the version was soon changed to 14.0.1 to fix certain bugs in the operating system. In November 2020, new features were added and bug fixes, changing the version to 14.1 and so forth. The latest version is 14.7.1. The 7 is the minor version and shows the number of times new features and fixes has been added to the version 14 since it was released. The 1 shows that there was a bug fix to this version. Some developers, like Microsoft, use a 4-part version number. In the case of Windows 10, the first two parts of the Windows 10's version number will always start as 10.0, and it only indicates the name of the operating system. The third part is known as the build number. This indicates the number of changes in the software. For every change in the software, the build number is increased. The fourth part is the revision number of the build. Now, this is used to identify revisions that were made to the build, such as alterations and corrections. Some developers use the date the software was released as part of the version number. This can be a year or month and year or a specific date. For example, Office Home and Student 2019 was released for 2019. Windows 10 used the month and year to indicate the date of its release. The first two numbers represent the release year, and the last two numbers represent the release month. The 2004 feature update was targeted for release in April of 2020. but it was not released until late May 2020, and the version number was never changed. The scheme was later changed with the release of version 20H2. Here you have the year 2020, and instead of the month of a release, you have H2, which shows the update was released in the second half of the year. Now, this version scheme can be misleading or perhaps confusing. They are mostly in name only and are often referred to as external version numbers. For instance, Windows 7 is not version 7. As you would expect, the name would imply. In fact, Windows 7 is version 6.1, known as the internal version number. To see your current Windows 10 version, open System Settings, then About, and under Windows Specifications, you will see a version number. And now we know that from earlier this refers to the version's release date. Below it is the OS build number. In my case, it is 19043.1151. Now, this would make my entire version of Windows 10 to be 10.0.19043.1151. You will see the reversion number climb as more issues are resolved for the build. Android uses a versioning scheme known as the alphanumeric versioning. On smartphones, you can go to Settings, then go to About Phone, and open System Information. On tablets, you can go to Settings, then About Tablet, and you will find the version number and a build number. For example, my phone shows its build number is RP1A.200.720.012. It is a bit odd to see this kind of software versioning. In the first group, the first character is the letter of the alphabet. When a new version is released, Android will use the next letter in the alphabet. So when Android 12 is released, the build number will start with the letter S. The second character in the group represents the branch platform the build belongs to. The P in my build number indicates that this is the primary build. Other letters are used to indicate other branches or code lines based on the primary platform. The third and fourth characters in the group tells Google that the exact code branch that the build is from. The second group is the date of the build's release. It's represented in year, month, and day format. This build was released July 20th, 2020. The third group identifies individual versions related to the same date code. This is a sequential number starting at 001. You may see a fourth group of characters in the build number. This is sometimes used to identify a hotfix as applied to the build represented as a two-digit alphanumeric code starting from A1. For some devices, the fourth group is the ID number of the baseboard. With versions prior to 8.0, the build was displayed differently. For example, my tablet shows its build number is NMF26X, with a second group displaying model and a baseboard information. The first character indicates the name of the operating system, which in this case is Nougat, and the second character is the branch the build belongs to. The third character represents the year and quarter the build was released. For example, A is from quarter 1, 2009, B refers to quarter 2 of 2009, and so forth. Now, this would mean that F would put it at quarter 2 of year 2010. The next two numbers in the group represent the counted days into the quarter. Since April is the beginning of the second quarter and the build says 26 days, this indicates that the build was released April 26, 2010. Now, this may not be the actual date, since some minor build versions use the original build date that they were based on. Finally, the last character in the group indicates individual versions related to the same date code, sequentially starting with the letter A. So as you can see, version and build numbers play an important role in software design. Most users go by the version number to identify change in the software. This is useful to know if there would be compatibility problems if the upgrade to the new version, or if an older version would work on your operating system, and so forth. Build numbers are often used by technical support when you are having issues. They use the information to determine the exact code base that you're having trouble with to better assist in resolving those problems. Now keep in mind that not all software developers use the same schemes. In general, the further to the right in the version number, the least significant the change in the software. Build numbers provide more in-depth information about the software. Software developers also maintain and track release information or release notes. You may find it in a file called readme first or readme.txt. You may also find it online like you see here for Mozilla Firefox. The notes contain all kinds of information throughout the builds or throughout the versions. Here you got 90.0.1, which was released recently, July 19th, 2021. And down below, you can see the fixes and stuff like that. They'll keep track of everything that they've done to that build to help you decide if it fixed any problems that you may have had. Now, on the website, which is great because you also have a feedback if you need to make suggestions to the developer, if you need to report a bug with the software, then you have the option to report that bug to them. So as you can see, the release notes do come in handy when it comes to these versions to find out what's being added, what's being removed, and if they fix certain problems. Well, this concludes this video. I've explained to you what the importance of version numbers for software is and how they play a role to help you better understand the problems that you may face depending on the version that you have. Well, I'm your host, Mr. Fixit. Thank you for watching.